Hi, welcome to Real Revit, Revit for the real world. I'm Tom Dorner. Is Revit really free? Well, yes, but with some limitations. Let's talk about it. If you like this video though, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All right, so straight from the Autodesk Knowledge Network, there's an article on how to view a Revit model or family without Revit, when the title of that should really be How to View a Revit Model or Family Without a License of Revit. And that's where a specific mode of Revit, called the Revit Viewer mode, comes into play. It is a supported solution from the Autodesk Knowledge Network, so this is not clickbait on some YouTube channel. The way it works is that you install Revit, and that can be either Revit or Revit LT, and within the installation, there's actually two different modes that you can run Revit. One is the license mode, where you must pay Autodesk the subscription fee for either Revit or Revit LT. And the other way is that you can launch what's known as the Revit Viewer, which requires no license. However, it does have some limitations, and those limitations are fairly strict, but it still has some great utility. Let's take a look at the Revit Viewer mode in action and see how it can fit in your workflow and what kind of benefits it can bring to you and your firm. All right, so let's launch Revit in Viewer mode and see what this is all about. The easiest way to start with is to go to the Windows Start menu, navigate to the Autodesk folder, and you will see the full versions of Revit, and you will see the Revit LT versions that I've got installed. And as you scroll down further, you will see that the viewer modes for each of the full version of Revit and Revit LT are indicated down here. Now, it's really important to understand that there's only one version of Revit that's installed. The way you launch it is what turns it from the license mode to the viewer mode. So even if you have a license of Revit, you can still launch it in the Revit Viewer mode. However, if you do, you won't have the ability to save or anything like that. So really, the Revit Viewer mode is intended for people that just want to look at Revit, or you'll see some of the other features here in the upcoming video. If you want to put a shortcut on your desktop, you can do that as well, or you can pin it to the start bar using the standard Windows techniques here. If you right-click on a Revit Viewer here 2022, you can go to the More menu and you can open up the file location. The file location will then show you where these icons are located, and then you can right-click on the viewer icon and say send to desktop, create shortcut. So once you've got that there, you can launch it from there, or you can continue to use the Windows Start menu. It doesn't really matter how you get there as long as you are launching the Revit Viewer. So we're going to launch Revit Viewer 2022 here, let it cook and do its thing. All right, when Revit launches in Viewer mode, you're going to get the Revit Current License Status dialog box, which says that Autodesk Revit 2022, or whatever version you're using, is in Viewer mode. And the Viewer mode allows all functionality of Revit except the following, where you save or save as in all cases, exporting or publishing modified projects, exporting or publishing any projects to a format containing model data that can be modified. So that includes not only Revit, but things like DXF, DWG, or printing projects after changes are made. However, one of the major benefits is that you can actually print projects as long as no changes have been made. So all you need to do at this point in time is click on the Close button. You are in the Revit View mode. So now that Revit 22 has launched in Viewer mode, we can simply open up a file. Now, interestingly enough, that file can be a local file, or if you have access to Autodesk Docs through your subscription, or even the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you can theoretically open up a file from there. However, there are some pitfalls that you need to be concerned with if you're going to do that, which I'll cover in a separate video. So right now, we're just going to use a local file. We're going to open up the sample architectural project. The sample architectural project opens up to a sheet view, but we can, of course, go to a 3D view, or we can navigate through this as if we were in the full license version of Revit. right? So we can certainly open up an elevation, we can take a look at it, and we have access to all of the traditional commands inside of Revit, such as checking the dimensions. And we have not modified the project because we only queried what that distance was. So the first benefit that you can use is that you can print a project. So if you're not on the Autodesk Construction Cloud and you're a smaller firm that keeps all their files locally, this is handy. Or if you're a consultant or a subcontractor or contractor working on the project and you want to, in addition to the printed construction documents that may have been provided to you, if you get the actual Revit file, then you can open it up and you can query and look at things that maybe weren't put on the original construction documents, because let's face it, not every condition is 100% documented, right? There's always this design intent that architects are shooting for. So right now I'm going to go Control P to initiate the print command. It says my little local printer is not capable of printing these large sheets, but that's fine, because at this point in time, we're actually in the print dialog box. And we can choose a different printer. In this particular case, I've got Bluebeam installed. And I can say, hey, the current window, or selected sheets or views, and I can do the session settings. And I can choose, how I want to print this. And if it's a larger sheet and I want to print it on something smaller, I can do that. But of course, Bluebeam has all of the standard architectural size sheets in both imperial and metric installed. So that's an option. Okay. And I'm not going to go through that process because we'll cover that in an additional video later on down the line. So the one thing to be aware of is that if you actually try to use in Revit 2022 and beyond the file export to PDF command, that will not work because you're in viewer mode and they have not allowed that functionality. However, printing to a PDF is certainly allowed. The second major benefit to using the Revit viewer mode, particularly in small firms that store their projects locally, is for the principals, project architects, project managers to be able to open up the current Revit model without fear of messing things up, but still have the ability to monitor what the Revit modelers on your project are doing. In particular, the one thing that you can do is that you can install third-party add-ins in full version of Revit Viewer, such as my favorite, which is the coin section box. I'm going to drag that panel down into the modeling area, and that's one of my favorite tips, is that if you're using a command often enough, you can actually drag it to the modeling area. So the way that the coins auto section box works is that you select some objects that you want to view in 3D, click on the auto section box. We're going to use the default 3D view to put those elements in, give it a buffer of 300 millimeters, click on OK, and you can see that it automatically creates that 3D section box for you without having to enable the section box and push and pull the edges of it around. This is just a much more convenient way. But you can see here how convenient it would be for someone to monitor what the state of the model is by continuously going in here and adjusting the 3D view. Of course, you can also go into all the standard views and sheets that the team has developed and monitor what is going on there. That's a major benefit, particularly for those that store their projects locally. If you store them on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, of course, you can view them there, but I'll argue that opening up the project in the Revit view mode is actually easier to navigate around. It's quicker, even though the Autodesk Construction Cloud offers some of this functionality. You still can't replicate going into native Revit and taking a look around. The beauty about this mode is that as I go through here and I get to the end and I want to get out of it, it doesn't even give me the option to save. So it's a fail-safe method where you know you're not going to mess things up. So another major benefit to using the Revit Viewer mode is if you're interested in learning Revit and you're not a student with access to the free educational software, you can install the Revit Viewer mode. And in this particular case, I can start a new project and I can choose what template I'm going to use. I'm going to use the architectural template, Imperial Units. And I can follow along with lessons, such as those that are forthcoming on this channel, or I can read some tutorials that are on the help menu here. And I'm going to place some walls into the project. And I'm going to go and put a couple of doors in. All right. And we can add some windows, and we can play around with all of the commands just to get a feel and an understanding of how the Revit system works. So it's a really powerful way to be able to learn Revit without having to invest any actual money into your learning process. The only downside to it is that you cannot save your work. So as long as you are fine with that, it's an excellent way to learn Revit. Now, when you launch the Revit Viewer mode, you are not burning through the trial period, because when you install Revit, if you launch it through the licensed icon, it will actually bring you into a 30-day trial. So you can learn Revit using the Revit Viewer mode, and then when you're ready to actually save your work, you can launch the 30-day trial. And then, of course, beyond the 30-day trial, you would have to subscribe to Revit LT or Revit. All right, so how do I download Revit if I don't have a license of Revit to begin with? The easiest way by far is to go to the Autodesk Virtual Agent at the address ava.autodesk.com. This will require that you establish an Autodesk ID if you don't already have one. Autodesk IDs are free, and if you go to autodesk.com, you can establish yours. Once you're here and you have your Autodesk ID, you can go to Quick Links and say Download Autodesk Products. If you are not signed in, it will require a sign-in. So I'm going to use my existing ID. And once I have signed in, you can say, I have an existing license, I am a student or educator, or I want a 30-day trial. Well, if you're not a student or educator, please don't choose that one. I'm going to say I have an existing license, even though I technically don't, but that's okay. It actually gives you the version that will run as a trial anyway. So it says, as a reminder, the best way is to access your Autodesk software is via your Autodesk account. Since you don't have access to that with an Autodesk account, we're going to say download the product. So here we have to enter Revit 2022 one more time, choose it from the list, and choose this computer, choose your language, choose your version of Windows. It's only available on Windows 64-bit, and you can click the download button. The download button will do a browser download and give you the entire installation of Revit, which is somewhere around 8 gigabytes. If you're having trouble downloading via the browser, there are actually other ways you can do it here. You can click on Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, and Part 5. These will download self-extracting parts, and when you double-click on Part 1 to run it, it'll start extracting that and then go on to Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, etc. And then once you've got that, it will actually do the installation process. So it's relatively straightforward. And you can use the Autodesk Virtual Agent for everything that Autodesk offers in terms of their portfolio. I hope you found this video useful and interesting. If you did, please click on the like button, and I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. And if you want to click on the bell button for future notifications of uploads, that would be wonderful as well. With that, have a good time Reviting.